Thank you all for joining us this evening. We're here together to inform the voters of Encinitas about the 4 candidates who want to become mayor of Encinitas for the next 4 years. Next, I want to thank the Leucadia Encinitas Town Council and the Olivenhain Town Council for sponsoring this forum and for inviting the League of Women Voters of North County, San Diego to conduct the forum. I'm Ronnie C., your moderator tonight. I've been a League member for many, many years. In order to avoid any conflict of interest, neither I, as moderator, nor the question sorters live or vote in Encinitas, and that includes the timer too. The League of Women Voters is a 102-year-old nonpartisan organization dedicated to encouraging informed and active participation in government. We also work to influence public policy through education and advocacy. This next statement is important. The League never, ever supports or opposes any political party or any candidate for public office. And in spite of our historical name, we welcome all people to join our organization. Tonight, we have a chance to learn about the candidates. All the candidates have agreed to the rules of the forum. As such, candidates agreed to conduct themselves in a civil manner, including refraining from making personal remarks about their candidates, other candidates, and individuals. And they will refrain from using abusive language. The candidates are here to present their views and policies and let us know how they would govern as mayor. The candidates have also agreed to the League's video recording policy. The forum is owned by the League of Women Voters of North County, San Diego, and anyone who's permitted to video record or stream the forum is authorized to air it only its entirety. You cannot edit the video. But this forum is indeed being recorded, and the League plans to put the video recording of this forum in its entirety on the League website as soon as possible. Probably it'll be on tomorrow. Now, a word about the format. All 4 candidates have been invited to this forum. They're Michael Blobe, Cindy Cremona, Tony Kranz, and Jeff Morris. Candidate Morris notified us that he will be unable to participate tonight. So we'll hear from 3 candidates. The residents of Encinitas have been encouraged to submit questions for the candidates to our League website. The questions have been sorted to avoid duplication and to cover a range of issues. We will start with opening statements of no more than 2 minutes, and then generally we'll ask questions to be answered in 1 minute. Their order of speaking was determined by lot, and the timer will give them a 30-second warning. Timer, do you want to show the audience what the 30-second warning looks like? Dawn? There it is. Okay. And a stop sign when it's time to stop speaking. Okay, great. Thank you. Now the candidates will make 2-minute opening statements, starting with candidate Blobe. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Michael Blobe. I live in Leucadia, and I am here tonight. I am running because there are a lot of issues that concern me greatly that I feel the city has not paid attention to. And I also think that they have not paid attention to a lot of the things that the citizens and the community have been saying. And so first and foremost, I want to work with the community. I want to hear the community's voice. I want to talk to both sides, the left and the right, and whatever other sides we have. I want to come together. We need unity. So I want to talk to all sides. I want to come to a compromise that works for everybody. And I want to go so far as to possibly adding a poll to the city website so that when we're going to make a decision on something really important, the community gets to vote, and their vote will also weigh on our decision of what we are thinking, working on at the city council. So I want to get the community heavily involved. I don't want to ignore them anymore. And some of the issues that I see facing us are mass overspending on things we don't need while ignoring things we do need. So we might be spending millions of dollars on something like streetscape before we get the rough roads paved, before we get crossings put in Leucadia. But we put a fence up, we don't put crossings in. We need those crossings. We need safe trails in Olivenhain. And one of my main focuses is responsible spending on needs before aesthetics. Also, the crime is going up. Homeless issues are going up. I don't care what charts and statistics are saying. You use your eyes to see that there is an issue, and we need to tackle that head on. We need somebody that's going to have a plan to tackle those issues. And my plan is to add more funding to the Sheriff's Department and focus on mental health and substance abuse treatment for the homeless. Thank you.
Ronnie, you're muted.
Next, we'll go to candidate Cremona. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you to the League, and thank you to the participants for this opportunity. My name is Cindy Cremona. I'm running as a no party preference candidate. I'm not accepting support or donations from political parties or special interests, just from residents. We have run an entirely grassroots campaign. I moved to North County, San Diego in 1986. I own a home in Encinitas where I've lived for almost 12 years. I founded and have owned my very successful executive search practice for almost 30 years. Tonight, we're going to have an opportunity to discuss many different issues. In Encinitas, we have one overriding issue: local control. My opponent, Mr. Kranz, is pro-Sacramento. I am pro-local control. I am the only candidate with a proven track record of defending local control in our community. I was instrumental in leading a community coalition that was very concerned about the impacts of a 200-unit project on a primarily Spanish-speaking 80-year-old Leucadia neighborhood. The Traffic and Safety Commission agreed with our concerns, and the Planning Commission denied the project 4-0. The City Council, including my opponent, barely discussed the issue and approved the project 4-0. With all of the growth that we are anticipating, we are not planning for infrastructure. And we are looking at extensive traffic, congestion, no new schools, no additional infrastructure projects being planned or budgeted for. For Encinitas,
Thank
we
you.
need local control, not Sacramento. Thank you.
All right, candidate Kranz.
Thank you. My name is Tony Kranz, and I am working to earn your vote to become the next mayor of Encinitas. For the last 10 years, I've had the honor of serving on the city council, which has provided valuable experience for serving as mayor. Over 60 years ago, my parents brought me to Encinitas as a tiny baby, and I grew up in a place that was known as the flower capital of the world. I lived across the street from greenhouses on Ocean View Avenue and attended local schools, graduating from San Diego in 1977. I played 2 years of football at Palomar College and then attended Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, studying printing and graphic design, the industry I now work in. My involvement in city business started with trying to slow down traffic on Hygeia, where we live in the house my wife grew up in. I was involved in advocating for the roundabouts on Leucadia Boulevard, the 101 Streetscape Project, and improvements to the railroad corridor, including at-grade crossings. These interests got me involved with the Leucadia Town Council, and I became a board member. I also served on the board of the Encinitas Historical Society and the San Diego Academy Athletic Council. Encinitas is an incredibly popular because we have a great city. We need to work together to keep the beach community vibe while also contending with the crowds that come to visit. I will do all I can to address the challenges of growth while staying true to my roots. But my top priority when I serve as mayor will be to have broad participation from the community, and we'll work hard to develop consensus around the critical issues in front of us. I look forward to leading the conversation in the future.
Thank you. The first question is, what experience do you have addressing local government issues? And we'll start with Ms. Cremona, candidate Cremona.
Thank you, Ronnie. My most recent experience is working as a community advocate, working with Leucadia neighborhoods that were concerned about a 200-unit apartment project that would be impacting their primarily Spanish-speaking 80-year-old community with very narrow roads and very tight access for vehicles, very limited parking. We spent the last year and a half raising funds, raising awareness, bringing our case to the Traffic and Safety Committee, eventually winning a 4-0 denial from the Planning Commission, but unfortunately we were overturned by the City Council within a month.
Thank you. Candidate Kranz.
The community work that I've been doing for the last 10 years as a city council member has been a lot of local issues that have been addressed. One of the most challenging, of course, was to become compliant with state law with regard to our housing element, which had never been legal. And as the state legislature created more laws that took local control away from the city of Encinitas and other jurisdictions, we had to comply with the law or continue to spend millions of dollars in lawyers. But ultimately, there have been a number of projects that we have completed. We just finished the first segment of Streetscape. All of that was with local funding, with the exception of about $4.5 million for the undercrossing, which provided pedestrian passageway between the west side of the railroad corridor to Paulike Central School on the east side. So lots of good local work and 10 years of progress we need to continue.
Thank you. Candidate Blobe.
Yes, my work at the local government level has been on the civil rights side, and it's basically been meeting with some people who have had issues in the city regarding civil rights violations, and I led them to the correct avenue of support, which would be the DFEH, which takes care of all those issues, even though it says for employment, it also isn't for any businesses. I also multiple times tried to contact the city council regarding following Section 51 of the California Civil Code to try to educate the public on the civil code and what it says, but I never heard back, and I would like to still educate the public on Section 51 of the California Civil Code, and if I'm mayor, I want to fully enforce the civil code in the city.
Thank you. The next question is, what is your track record in building coalitions to achieve your goals? And I'm going to add this next question to that question. How will you work across aisles to unify divides on the city council? Can you give an example of your working effectively with others? So it's building coalitions and working effectively with others to build a coalition. And we'll start with candidate Kranz.
Yes, I've had the pleasure of serving with a variety of several council members who had definitely different political positions than I did, and I've been on the winning side of a few 3-2 votes. Perhaps the most memorable was the 3-2 vote where we put together a coalition to purchase Pacific View School in downtown. There were other very challenging issues that the city has been dealing with. The alcohol serving establishments in downtown Encinitas when I first got on the council were a bit out of control. So we worked as a city council and deliberated and came up with some strategies and addressed the issues, and things have been much better. So I've had the opportunity to serve with people of different political persuasions, and I think I've successfully forged some allies in that. And when we disagreed, we weren't disagreeable.
Thank you. Mr. Blobe.
Yes, in the organization I belong to, I am vice president and treasurer, and I have to deal with people from all walks of life, from all sides. I'm talking about extreme right Republicans, extreme left Democrats. I'm talking about extreme Christians to atheists. I'm talking about anything you can think of. I have to deal with them, vegans and people that hate vegans, but they have to bring them all together and tell them, like, if you want to work for one cause, we have to put aside our differences and come together and work for that cause. Because if you are starting to fight with each other, all that's doing is causing a rift in our cause, and it weakens it, and it doesn't belong in my organization. And so that's how I got to my position, is I'm able to talk to anybody. I have no political preference. I try to stay in the middle, because what I envision is always hearing both sides, negotiating with both sides, and coming to a compromise, because I don't think either side is right.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Cremona.
Thanks, Ronnie. In both my professional life and as a local activist, I have worked for the last well over 30 years, building consensus, building coalitions, working with executives, board members, building teams, building successful teams, and in my own community, leading a coalition and raising funds towards protecting our community from egregious development. As a nonpartisan candidate, I'm very comfortable working across the aisle. My own campaign team is very diverse, with both Republicans and Democrats and some no party preference volunteers. And we've had an extremely successful mission together. And I'm sure from my 30 plus years of leadership experience that I can successfully lead the city to great decisions.
Thank you. The next question is about homelessness. And I must say, we got many questions on homelessness and housing and affordable housing and development. That seems to be the prime concern of the residents of Encinitas. Anyway, those that sent in their questions. So the next question is, what is the city doing now to help the unhoused, and how can you make it better? Please provide 3 specific steps you would take to reduce homelessness. And we'll start with Mr. Blobe.
Yes, this is a very important issue with me. And the main issue I have is we cannot give free handouts without conditions attached to them. And unfortunately, that is the case. And what happens is we are enabling people to further self-destruct. I know you say giving shelter is compassion. It is not when you're enabling somebody to self-destruct. So the main issue is what I want to focus on is, if I'm giving somebody a room to stay in, a key to a room or a parking spot, they have to agree to check in to some treatment, either for substance abuse or mental health. And if they do not agree to a program, they lose their key, they lose their place to stay. And that is necessary, because you do not want to enable people to get worse and overdose in their hotel room. Number 2, we need a lot. I've talked with the sheriffs, and I know that they have the PERT, but there's only 2 PERT officers on duty at a time.
Thank you. So your time is up.
Okay.
All right, candidate Cremona.
Homelessness is not a crime, but a mayor's first responsibility is to protect her citizens and to find compassionate ways to help the homeless off the streets. We can and should enforce our vagrancy codes. We should be partnering with other cities who have shelters that can provide a roof over our homeless population's heads. And in doing so, in having those partnerships, we can offer them an opportunity to get services or shelter. Additionally, our Community Resources Center is the only center in coastal North County. I think we should be asking our County Board of Supervisors to please open additional CRCs in other cities to take all of the burden off of Encinitas. Currently, we are helping all of North County's homeless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate Kranz.
Yes, it's hardly fair to address this particular issue in a minute, but the city of Encinitas has been working with the CRC and the county and the sheriff's department to address homelessness as much as we legally can. And it is one of those vexing issues that are very difficult to address. But we did adopt 2 years ago a homeless action plan, which we've been working on and implementing. And we're when I become mayor, we will soon have a summit to talk about that plan. It'll be 2 years old, and we will look at what's working and what's not. But most important, the partnership with the county is paramount. They have the Health and Human Services Department. No city in San Diego County has one. And so we need to partner with the county. They are working to implement a program by Roseanne Haggerty with a group called Community Solutions. And they put together a by name list so that we identify who our homeless people are and what they need to get in under a roof.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you can follow on. You can speak next. And that will be the question, Candidate Kranz. What will you do to assist our unhoused to have a safe place to sleep? And what do you think about the safe parking program at the community/senior center? Candidate Kranz.
I think the safe parking program is working well, and it is helping to keep people who have lost their home but have a car to sleep in outside of the weather an opportunity to do so without having to keep one eye open. It's a safe place. They engage with the Jewish Family Service to get a variety of assistance, and it's an important tool that we have to keep people from that last step of becoming sleeping on the street. So we will continue that. I do expect, I know Vista has been looking at doing a program like that, and I do expect it to spread more in the North County. And we will continue to work through our homeless action plan, which includes a conversation about the possibility of having a shelter, because that's one of the tools that the Sheriff's Department could use in order to get people off the street. And the notion that you can put conditions on it will mean that more people will stay on the street because they don't want to have to comply with those conditions.
Thank you. Candidate Cremona.
Could you ask the question again, please?
What will you do to assist our unhoused to find a safe place to sleep? And what do you think about the safe parking program at the community/senior center?
Though I don't advocate for a homeless shelter in our city being primarily a residential and tourist community without the infrastructure to support all of the services that go along with a homeless shelter, I do support partnering with other cities that have the infrastructure and are either building or have homeless shelters. Other cities do it very successfully. I think the homeless parking lot is a Band-Aid. It's very expensive on a 6-month basis. It helps a handful of people, but we have many, many more people sleeping in their cars, on our streets, in our parks, on our streets. And we can do a lot more to help them transition into services. So the parking lot, though helpful to those few, and I think that's great, is not necessarily the overall answer to solving the problem.
Thank you. Candidate Blobe.
Yes, first of all, I would like to say I strongly do not support a shelter in this city. I do support working with cities like Escondido, Interfaith, Oceanside. I do know like El Cajon, Lemon Grove also has a lot of services available. I do not support a shelter here at all. As far as the parking, as I was stating earlier, the parking program I support the keys for hotel rooms, but the only way I support them is we put conditions. I know you're putting people back on the street, but you cannot have people overdosing and dying in hotel rooms. You can't have people at the parking lot going crazy and attacking other people who are there because they're down on their luck. You have to put conditions, and that is necessary because these people need to get treated. You cannot help them self-destruct. And so that is why I say we need to have conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the last question dealing with homelessness. How do you propose to balance dealing with residents' safety and the need of the unhoused? And we'll start with candidate Cremona.
Great question. As I mentioned before, resident safety is paramount. And I think that we can go a lot further in enforcing the codes that we have. And we certainly have codes on the books that deal with vagrancy issues. We need to be able to help those that are drug addicted with mental illness find services and offer them that opportunity to have a path towards getting healthy or becoming more productive citizens. It's such a short amount of time to answer such a complicated question. But there is a lot more that we can and should be doing, and we can do it compassionately for both residents and for homeless people living on our streets.
Thank you. Candidate Blobe?
Yeah, so the main thing is to counsel with the sheriff's department and clamp down on enforcement of all laws pertaining to any kind of violence, any kind of harassment, any kind of vagrancy. And we can't have the sheriffs telling residents if a homeless person comes up and hits them that they can't really do anything. What they can do is they take them to Hillcrest, to Sharp Hillcrest, and they can hold them for 48 hours. And I think that should be done in every case to at least, get them out of the city and make it less comfortable to be continuously causing violence, only for the ones that are causing violence. So what you're asking about is the safety of the citizens. And there has been a lot of incidents in the last few weeks. So they need to be taken out of town every time, not just let go. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kranz.
Well, the myth that there's some lax enforcement of laws is just wrong. And every time they are taken out of town, when the sheriff's deputies get involved, if there have been a threat to themselves or others. So it's happening. This notion that we're selectively enforcing the laws is just wrong. And, we're doing everything that we can. The reality is that if they're offered services and they refuse them, there isn't much we can do beyond that. And that's part of the challenge of this conditional approach, is that if they say, no, I don't want to do that, they're just going to stay on the street. And there are conditions to get in the safe parking program, and they have to be, there's use of drugs is one of them. You cannot use drugs in the safe parking program. So we're working under Boise as best we can. I'm working with the sheriff's captain to try and address tools that he may want to be able to work with our homeless population better. And we'll continue to work on this problem. The reality is we've got a homeless action plan that was adopted unanimously by the council. And one of the first things that I will do as mayor is take that and have a community conversation about what we might want to change in it.
Thank you. The next question is about housing. How can the city of Encinitas protect itself from state mandates that override our local ordinances and planning? What is the state doing now that we can legitimately challenge? And we'll start with candidate Kranz.
Nothing. The laws that are on the books right now are what we're living with. My hope is that Mayor Blakespear is a senator so that she can go up there with some experience as a city mayor, and we'll get some help with some of the current rules that we're operating under, because I do think that this the state control is over the top in some areas. So but for now, the state has been year after year adopting more land use legislation that is putting requirements on not only Encinitas, but every jurisdiction in the state. Santa Monica recently had an opinion, a letter from HCD that said, we're going to take control of your land use decisions from you. So, it's coming. And if we don't, get with the program, it's going to be way worse than what we're experiencing right now. So we need to keep, make sure that we stay in compliance with the law and advocate for changes to the law where we think it's necessary.
Thank you. Candidate Cremona.
Unfortunately, we need 5,000 to 8,000 new units to comply with our state mandates, and that's to reach our affordable percentages numbers. Mr. Kranz said in a recent debate that we are 99% built out. I'd like to know where those 5,000 to 8,000 units will go. Whose backyard? Will it be open space? We had an opportunity last year to increase the percentage of affordable units in all of our upcoming density projects to 50%. And unfortunately, our city council only moved it to a mere 20%. I think that cities need to gather together to push back against the state and to regain local control. It is critical to the integrity of our city and our city's character. And I think that Encinitas can do a better job.
Thank you. Now, I'll remind you not to call out your opponents. Thank you. Okay, candidate Blobe.
Well, there's nothing that we can do against what the state has mandated without the risk of a lawsuit. But what you can do is you can try to negotiate with Sacramento on the issues. And what you can do is you can take a more formulated action. So like what I'm talking about is recently we had to kick out the nursery, I can't remember the name of it right now, where they had like a turtle and everything down there. The name is escaping me right now, but they got booted out to build affordable housing there. That should have never happened. We should require every single new development that's coming in to have the affordable housing a part of it, because we are getting built up, especially in Leucadia, we are getting built up with multiple developments. And if we implemented the affordable housing into those developments, we could make up for our downfall of percentage shortage in no time. But nobody's upping the requirements, and so you might get 5 or 6 out of like 100. What was it? 5 or what did I read? Maybe like 15 out of 100. That doesn't work. You need more, and so we need to start pushing. We need to make a requirement that all new developments going forward include affordable housing at 30 to 50%. And that's just how it has to be.
Thank you. The next question is, what would you do as mayor to help all citizens know what we can actually control or influence related to housing density? And we'll start with Mr. Blobe.
So I would flat out tell the community there's nothing, I cannot go against what Sacramento does. I would tell them we either have to find a way to get local control, and that's not going to happen without Sacramento. I would tell them you have to make your voice known to Sacramento, right? The governor. I can try to negotiate with Sacramento, but the people need to step up and speak too, because we can't do anything against what Sacramento is telling us, against what the state mandates, because if we do, like I said, we risk the threat of a lawsuit. And so that's the fact. I would basically tell the public our hands are tied until things change, or until you make that change with your voice. Thank you.
All right. Candidate Kranz?
Yeah, I think that leadership from the mayor is really important on this, and I will certainly use all the relationships that I have with legislators in Sacramento to try and get some change. But the reality is that I am not, the mayor is not alone capable of making delivering this message. So the full council needs to get involved and spread. We need to educate more. After the Measure U housing element update failed, we put together a housing task force with myself, Mayor Blakespear, Bruce Ehlers, and Kurt Grossclose, and we had about 25 meetings where we worked diligently to try and find a map of parcels that would meet state law and also pass a vote of the people. Ultimately, it failed as well, and we ended up with a judgment that required us to do what HCD told us to do, which was not good for the community.
Thank you. Candidate Cremona.
I think we can certainly do a better job of finding locations where we can do some infill housing. I also think we can increase the affordable percentages numbers up to 40 or 50%. Our planning commission proved that the numbers pan out, and we can do so. And I would advocate for that quickly. The more affordable units we have, the less overall units that we have to build. I remain extremely concerned about the lack of infrastructure that has been put in place and the current amount of density projects that have already been built, for instance, in Leucadia. So it is important to advocate for local control, partner with other cities and organizations like Livable California and our Neighborhood Voices. We're looking to put an initiative on the ballot in 2024. That would be a constitutional amendment that would bring back our local control. And I would advocate very strongly for that.
Thank you. The next question is, what are your thoughts on SB 9? That's a state allowing an increasing R1s to 2 or more dwellings. We'll start with Mr. Kranz. What are your thoughts on SB 9?
I opposed SB 9 and sent a letter to the state. It was approved by the legislature and signed by the governor. A lot of the predictions about the impacts of SB 9 have not so far proven true. There are some projects, but not as many as were anticipated. So in the meantime, I think that the most important thing right now is that things settle down. There just is an endless supply of new legislation on land use, and what we really need to do is take a pause and let this thing work out a little bit. The reality is we can't. The spreadsheet that the Planning Commission recommended 50% affordable had several flaws. We had hired a consultant which has tremendous experience in that particular arena, and his calculations didn't match with what the Planning Commission did. We got a letter from HCD saying, no, you can't go to 50%. And the reality is that the nexus study, as it's known, to create a nexus between the percentage of affordable that could be built was not there. So we adopted as much as we could.
Ms. Cremona, candidate Cremona.
Thanks, Ronnie. I'm not a proponent of SB 9 and SB 10, and I was very disappointed that our city didn't maximize the protections for our single-family residential neighborhoods. I live in a particularly vulnerable neighborhood in Leucadia, blue collar, large lots. My neighbor next door could sell his home, make a ton of money. They could put 2 duplexes on there and a couple of ADUs, and they don't even have to supply parking. So for many residential homeowners, especially in such an expensive community as Encinitas, it is a worry that overshadows them as homeowners. We haven't seen a great uptick, but I'm sure we will. Markets go up and markets go down. And if this market slows down and property values go down, it'll be great opportunities for investors to come in and double up on the units that they're going to be able to put on properties. And that would be very unfortunate.
Thank you. Candidate Blobe.
As I've stated in the past, I am against the mass development, especially like in my area. Leucadia has been built up. It's getting more built up than downtown Encinitas now. We have multiple double-story developments coming in. And the fact that they can put that in right next door, and the fact that, you know, I heard along this corridor, they can put in a development and say that the parking is along the railroad tracks. They don't have to add parking anymore. And that's a big concern. I am totally against it. And we need to cut down on the mass developments. And that's why I also say, if we are having these mass developments, we force the affordable housing into them, which will cut down in the amount of people trying to flow in here and develop everything up. Now, if we can't do 50%, then we'll do 45. If we can't do 45, we'll do 40, but we will find a higher percent than what we have now, because it's getting ridiculous where we have to put that on the back burner and make property buys just to put in affordable housing. No, it can't work that way anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another set of questions on affordable housing, and timer, we'll give each candidate 2 minutes for this because there are actually 3 parts to this question. Encinitas has a need for more affordable housing. What is the best path toward accomplishing this? And what, if anything, can the city do to create low income or affordable housing? And we'll start with Ms. Cremona.
Thank you. As I mentioned before, I absolutely believe that we can increase the percentage of affordable units in each project. Otherwise, we will continue to be flooded with market rate units, and we very much need affordable housing. And we need affordable housing for our emergency service providers, teachers, nurses, and we're not doing a very good job of getting there. And unfortunately, many of, or the few homes that were affordable that have come up for sale in our community have been sold to investors. And those investors have in turn rented out those properties, unfortunately making sure that those renters never have the path towards home ownership and all of the benefits thereof. So I think we can increase that percentage. And I think we can absolutely, especially with the potential coming recession, look towards developers, and we do have them in San Diego, who build affordable housing. When we hear that builders or developers don't want to build affordable units, well, maybe that's the handful of developers who get first pick at everything that they've been building locally. But there are other developers that will absolutely look at affordable projects. And again, with a recession, development's going to slow down and they're going to get very, very hungry, and they are going to look for any opportunity to build. And I think that we'll have some advantage there. And it would be great if we could take advantage of that, get more affordable units, and get some balance in our housing supply.
Thank you. Candidate Blobe?
Yes, I like to say first and foremost, the first step in affordable housing is protecting what we have right now. We cannot let developers come in and buy the apartment complexes and the trailer parks and come in and remodel or do renovations and then turn them into market rate housing. It's happening all over town, and like right where I am in our Hillcrest, there's multiple families in an apartment complex that got bought out, was renovated, the rent was raised 3 to 4 times, and all those families lost their home. They couldn't go back, they couldn't afford it. And so I want to stop. If we have existing affordable housing, if somebody wants to renovate it, they can, but they need to grandfather the original residents in at that rate. And then whoever new moves in, they can charge whatever they want. But we need to protect what we have right now. Second, like I said, we raised the percentage of new developments 30 to 50%. If a developer doesn't want to develop at that rate, they can walk away. Another one will be right behind them wanting to develop. And also importantly, ban any sale of houses that are meant for affordable housing for any kind of development other than for families that it's meant to go to. And those are the important steps. But my focus is to protect what we have now, because that is in threat. We are in threat of losing. We may be trying to add affordable housing, but what good do we do when we're losing what we have now? Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kranz.
In my 10 years, I've learned a lot about housing and building affordable housing and how to comply with state law. And I acknowledge that this is a very complicated subject. And the reality is that the answers that we just heard don't comport with the law. There are affordable housing developers. They do that because of tax breaks that they get and other incentives that are provided to them through subsidization. For example, the Iris apartments that are on Vulcan Avenue down near Pollock Central School, those were built by Chelsea Investments, and they were part of the affordable housing projects that were on Saxony at One Channel Island, and 2 other projects where all of the affordable units were moved to that apartment complex and subsidized through tax benefits and other things. There's a lot of talk about partnering, the current developers partnering with developers who specialize in affordable housing, and that's good. Ultimately, this is going to probably require participation by the city, and the city will need to bring real estate assets to the equation as a subsidy for a higher percentage of affordable housing in each project. And there are state subsidies that are possible. County has been subsidizing. And so the reality is that the city needs to get actively engaged with the resources that we have, the land resources, in order to get a higher percentage of affordable housing in each of these projects. Until the city gets actively involved, there is going to be a tail chasing here where we're not getting a high enough percentage according to HCD, and it's a never-ending cycle that we can't sustain. So the reality is we have to figure out a way to get the percentages higher. And our next housing element update, the parcels that will be selected will, if I'm successful and I become mayor, they will have agreements in place that increase the percentage of affordable.
Thank you. The next question is still on housing. Name 3 specific requirements you would include in high-density housing plans to ensure that the voters give their Prop A required approval. Does anybody want to take that first?
I'd be happy to.
Right.
So the question is Prop A approval, and all upzoning is subject to a Prop A vote. That's the challenge that we have, is that the no net loss law is going to kick in fairly soon, and we're going to have an obligation under state law to upzone more parcels within 6 months. And it's difficult to do that with Prop A in place, but we will work towards that. And I expect that there will be a housing element update on the ballot in 2024. But in the meantime, what we really need to do is make sure that the next housing element update includes parcels that have commitments from the property owners to have higher percentages of affordable housing as part of them. Some of the parcels that were upzoned in the last cycle, the land value increased significantly when they became R30. And because we were under the gun and had an order from the judge to comply with HCD's requirements, we didn't have the opportunity to negotiate with those landowners in order to increase the percentage. We really need to be able to have a conversation with each property owner that may have the opportunity to have the high density overlay on their parcel.
Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Blobe.
So I think the answer is instead of negotiating with, is to put in place the requirement to start with, that we have to have a certain percentage of affordable housing in place. I don't think we can negotiate. I'm talking about moving forward, any kind of future development. We place in a requirement, as I stated, 30 to 50%. Instead of finding specific properties to build affordable housing on. Like, I do not support that. Like, Sunshine Gardens was the name of the nursery, and they were kicked out because the city wants to build affordable housing on that property. And I think that is wrong. You need to implement it into what's coming in now, because you're getting overbuilt up with at market housing at a density, and that shouldn't be happening. If you want to have a density, you have to have affordable housing implemented in it as well. And so moving forward, I propose the percentage of 30 to 50%. I think it would be hard to negotiate with current owners who are already participating in developments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to change subjects for a bit. The next, and timer, we're going back to 1 minute. Do you support the city's climate action plan? Why or why not? And we'll start with with candidate Cremona.
Ronnie, I didn't get a chance to answer the last question.
Oh dear, sorry.
Can I start there?
Yes, you certainly
And then
can.
you could pass around and then come to me again, if that's okay.
No, fine, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know how we would incentivize developers to pony up affordable units when the law is balanced to their advantage. Unless we mandate affordable units and we get developers that are willing to do it, I think they're not going to offer to do it on their own. And as far as available land, unfortunately, we had a great opportunity with L7 on Quail Gardens Drive that could have been 100% affordable. But a couple of council members negotiated a completely different property, an inappropriate property that ended up being only 20% affordable. So we have actually squandered away opportunities to build affordable units. And now we are stuck with owing tons of units to the state. With our low 20%, it will take thousands of units to catch up. We're not putting in infrastructure. We have endless traffic, not enough schools. You know, when our city tells us our hands are tied, how are residents supposed to feel comfortable that our city government and leadership is looking out for our best interests? So I don't think that those are, necessarily really great suggestions. I think that unless we want to go into the little open space we have left, we need to push back against the state, partner with other cities and organizations, and get our local control back and get Sacramento out of our backyard.
Thank you. I'm sorry I skipped over you before.
Okay.
Now we're going to move on to a question about the climate action plan. And we'll start with Mr. Blobe. Do you support the city's climate action plan? Why or why not?
I do not support banning anything. I support what do we call it, advocacy, but I do not support banning gas stoves, banning gas appliances, banning gas blowers, banning generators, banning balloons, banning straws. But like you can advocate, but you do not have to ban. I don't think if somebody releases a balloon in Encinitas, it's not going to stay in Encinitas. Okay, it's going to go out of the border. Instead, what we should be focusing on is the land. A lot of Native American residents are concerned about the land as well. The land creates our atmosphere. The land creates our oxygen, the plants do. And by continuously developing everything up, we're like more damage that way than we are, with having a balloon or having a gas stove.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Cremona. Do you support the city's climate action plan?
Well, I certainly support good climate advocacy as a ocean lover, surfer, lover of the environment and animals. I think it's important that we actually do more to preserve our open space. I know our open space funding was seriously depleted. We need to make sure that we've got lots of trees, lots of open space, and that we are keeping our traffic flowing. My biggest concern is density creates more traffic, more congestion, more people sitting at traffic lights, more pollutants in the air. I think we've done some great work, but I think we need to balance it with a bit more of a pragmatic approach and not focus so much on pouring more concrete and cutting down trees, but actually preserving what we have and expanding upon it.
Thank you. Candidate Kranz.
We have one of the best climate action plans in the county, and I will be working to reach more of the goals that are in there. We are now part of a community choice energy program, which is going to give us some excellent opportunities to incentivize more solar panels on rooftops and the implementation of microgrids with battery storage of power. So those are all important measures that we need to take. Eliminating new gas hookups was also important. We're in a climate crisis, and the reality is that we need to do everything we can to reduce the burning of fossil fuels. So we need to continue with the work that we're doing, and if we can, to tighten up the goals. The reality is that the density that we're building is relatively mild compared to other parts of our county, but the critical part of the density is that it avoids sprawl, and it allows people who work in our city to live in our city. And it's really critical that we do that as much as we can.
Thank you. All right, to a change of pace. What role should municipal government play in funding cultural and creative efforts? Please state your reasons. And if elected, how do you plan to identify, connect with, and support cultural, creative, and artistic assets in Encinitas? Timer, we'll give them 1.5 minutes for this one, as it's long. And we'll start with Ms. Cremona.
Thank you. Well, we're very fortunate in that we have a very rich arts and culture environment here in Encinitas. We have a great creative community. We have Pacific View that finally, after 10 years and a lot of expenses, is going to be developed into an art center. I think the folks should have had a vote on that. And I think that I would have liked to have seen an outside organization with experience building out art centers come in and redevelop it and potentially make it profitable, since we have so much debt on it. But I like the idea of encouraging our artistic community to find outlets. Great for children, great for seniors who are often underserved here. They're kind of the hidden majority. And I think that arts and culture are a great way for them to participate in our community. And I absolutely support what we've done in the past, and certainly look forward to seeing some of those programs expanded in the future.
Thank you. Candidate Kranz?
Yes, thank you. The Pacific View purchase was one of the most important things the city could do. We have been paying that mortgage for coming up on 10 years, and we will eventually have that mortgage paid off, and it will be an asset that future generations will be able to enjoy. We did bring in a nonprofit, and they worked hard to be able to raise the money to do the improvements necessary to occupy the buildings, but it didn't work out. We tried that, and it was a valiant effort, but it didn't work out, and the city is now going to make that happen. And I look forward to having arts activities at Pacific View in the near future. The reality is that we're heavily indebted for the community park that we own, which is a beautiful facility that is loved by many. But nobody ever says, well, that's got to be profitable. We as a city have a very wealthy community that has the wherewithal to purchase assets like Pacific View and to provide the community with opportunities to enjoy the arts. And I think it's one of the greatest things about the city of Encinitas. My father-in-law came here in the 60s to throw pots. I happen to know Toza Radakovich, a tremendous artist. This community is full of them. Rosemary Kimball, Jeffrey Laudenslager. There's a long list of people that have created beautiful art. Germ Wright is another one of those artists. He's a teacher at San Diego Academy, and there's an item on the agenda on next Wednesday that we're going to be awarding a public art project for the El Portal undercrossing.
Your time is up. Thank you. Candidate Blobe.
Well, as many people know, I am an artist of music, but still I connect with all people, creative people. So this is an issue that is kind of important to me, because not only are the physical things needs that we need, but we do need creativity. And so I am all for Pacific View, but at the same time, we needs before aesthetics. So I think that's a project that will happen in steps, and we can put what we can afford into it. But I think also more importantly is to partner with the library, partner with the senior center, even use the city hall. We have a meeting room. We can do artist features in the city hall meeting room. We can have local artists paintings on the walls. And then I have my idea. We had art walk down the 101. We could also have a music walk where we have a bunch of bands come in. Every block have a different band, and I know a lot of people that I could probably get to volunteer their time to play. to do a one day just for exposure, and have vendors and we can make revenue at the same time. But showcasing artists, it doesn't have to cost money. We have the space to do it now. I think we just need to add more art focused events, because I don't think there are enough of them, even though I am happy with what we do have. Thank you.
All right. Now, a different subject. With the increase in bikes, especially e-bike usage, do you think Encinitas should adopt more regulations? And we'll start with Mr. Blobe, candidate Blobe.
I definitely think, I don't know about regulations as much as a training. Like, so we have too many teenagers riding bikes and being very erratic when they're doing it, running stop signs, grouping up on the road, causing chaos. And the issue is they can ride a bike with no training whatsoever. And I think we as a city could create some program where you have to get at least certified to use an e-bike. I wouldn't limit it to an age, because not all kids are irresponsible. And I believe that if they are informed and have to earn a certificate to ride their bike responsibly, it will actually make them feel proud. And so I think a program of more of education and earning a certificate that could serve as sort of like a license. And if you violate the law, you can lose your certificate, and then you can't ride your bike. So I think, no, we don't need any more regulations, but we need education. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Cremona.
I think everyone can acknowledge that the proliferation of e-bikes has created a lot of safety issues, and the sheriff's captain told me it's one of the top 3 issues that they get calls on. I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. The city, there are organizations that are doing a great job with training. They're not mandatory, which is a little challenging, right? You can't make folks go to them. Carlsbad just enacted an emergency ordinance. I'm sure we can partner with them, maybe adopt some of the legislation that they're doing, see what's successful, see what's working. But I think the most important thing with e-bikes is that we need to be more proactive rather than reactive. And by proactive, we need to make sure that kids are getting the tools, and adults as well, are getting the tools that they need before they get on that bike. That might mean mandatory training, maybe tiered fines if they have multiple violations. Most important is that we want to keep drivers and cyclists of all ages safe.
Thank you. Candidate Kranz.
Yeah, about 18 months ago, I called for a special meeting of the city council to have experts in this area join us in a conversation with the community about ways that we can make improvements to our current ordinances, to see if there's more that we need to do or could do. The challenge is that while I bought my e-bikes, my wife and I bought our e-bikes at Charlie's Electric Bikes in downtown, there are a lot of bikes that get purchased over the internet. So controlling who owns a bike and compelling them to, take classes is not easy, but it's something that I would like to explore. I would have that meeting, that special meeting, very quickly after I become mayor, and we could have that conversation, because something needs to be done. We are conducting classes. The San Diego Bike Coalition is running those, and they are very important. There are principals at the local schools that are getting more aggressive at requiring education, and that's because they have bike corrals that are filling up, and that is absolutely tremendous for our community, because for every one of those bikes that gets ridden to school, that's 4 car trips by their parents that they don't have, that we don't have on our roads. And it frees the parents and it frees the kid. There's a lot more flexibility, and I think it's good, but we do want to take action before the tragedy happens and be proactive, as candidate Cremona mentions.
Thank you. We have time for one more question, and we have a lot more questions. But I'll ask this one. Crossing the railroad tracks in North Leucadia is now forbidden. What are you doing to facilitate our getting to the beach without breaking the law? And we'll start with Ms. Cremona, candidate Cremona.
You know, like many of my fellow Leucadian residents, I'm getting in my car to get to the beach, to find parking, wasting fuel, creating pollution, because I can't walk across the tracks if I want to go to the beach or I want to go surfing. So I think it's a priority. Safe crossings, along with quiet zones. Unfortunately, Cardiff has been prioritized, and we've got about a 1.3 mile stretch of North Leucadia where the east side of Leucadia and the west side of Leucadia are separated. We need safe crossings. We don't need excuses. It's a process. There's a bureaucracy to get there. As mayor, I would make it a priority and facilitate whatever it takes to get those safe crossings in place. They take time, and we've wasted too much time already.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate Kranz.
Yes, as a council member, I have prioritized crossings in Leucadia, and we are currently on track to have the studies completed that we can take to the CPUC and advocate for at-grade crossings. I think that's the quickest and most, it's critical that we come up with a solution as quickly as possible. So at-grade crossings, much like they have in San Clemente, where they have 6 at-grade crossings, is what I'm working to have installed in Leucadia, north of Leucadia Boulevard. So we'll continue that. And as mayor, I assure you that we're going to do everything that we can. And my hope is that we can keep the council unanimous in support of at-grade crossings. But if the CPUC gets in the way, we will have to come up with another solution. Anybody who lives in the vicinity of Saxony would probably want to ride their bike down Leucadia Boulevard to get to the beaches. So Leucadia Boulevard's a crossing. We're also working on the Vulcan side of the tracks to put in a way to safely bicycle within the railroad corridor so that you can bike or walk to Leucadia Boulevard. But we need more cross connectivity. There's no question about that. It's always been part of the planning that we've done. We've got several efforts that we've made in that regard. The first study that was done was in 2004, and we've got 2 crossings and we have more to go. And right now, the highest priority is in Leucadia.
Thank you. Thank you. Candidate Blobe.
Yes, so crossings are one of my top priorities. I've talked to a lot of people in this area, and they are very upset with the situation here. And they've been ignored for so long. I'm talking decades. And then like Cardiff is getting Verde, basically the crossing to nowhere. Now they can say it was just to apply for the grant, but the issue is I know how government works, and when they start talking about one, that's the one that's going to get put in first. And so if I'm elected, I am going to make crossings tier 1 priority. I am going to require at least one be put in before streetscape is finished. I want to make at least one, if not both, a part of streetscape, because we are cutting off the community from streetscape, which is supposed to unite the community. And so there will be one crossing before streetscape is done. I don't know, the plan they have for this area confuses me, because they have a crossing at Glaucus and at Hillcrest, And Glaucus is very close to Leucadia, and I think it should be moved to Jason and Hillcrest because that equals out the spacing between crossings. But the crossings will be at grade. And if we get pushback about at grade crossings, I'm not there to make friends. I will push back and then start offering, extending the roads over the tracks, which.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Before we go to the closing statements, let's give the candidates a moment to take a breath. And in the meantime, I'll give you some information about voting in the upcoming election on November 8th. The deadline to register to vote is October 24th. But even if you miss that deadline, you can vote a provisional ballot at any time during the election, even up to election day. But it is easy these days to register to vote. You can go online and go to sdvote.org, the Registrar of Voters website. And we'll put up a slide at the end with these websites. So it's sdvote.org to get to the Registrar of Voters website. And we also recommend Voters Edge. That's votersedge.org. It's an excellent website to get information straight from the candidates' own postings, links to their websites, the media, and information on contributions to their campaigns. And of course, you'll find lots of nonpartisan voting information and links to recordings of candidate forums and explanations of the ballot measures on our league website, lwvncsd.org. And on October 15th, we will have a team explaining the ballot measures, which are always so long and confusing in California. I find that very helpful. And of course, we'd all love you to become league members. Now, the candidates will go to their closing statements of no longer than 2 minutes, and they'll give them in the reverse order in which they did their opening statement. So we'll start with candidate Kranz.
Yes, thank you. And thanks to my fellow candidates for the opportunity to have this forum. I would, the reality is that when I was growing up here as a kid, I never would have expected that I would have the privilege of serving on the city council. So the last 10 years have been quite a joy. As I look forward to being elected mayor, I've been reflecting a bit on the previous mayors that I've served with. Mayor Blakespear, Mayor Gaspar, and Mayor Barth. And I see things in each of their personalities that I think have benefited Encinitas overall. But the one that I have been thinking about most is Mayor Barth, because she led a new council through a strategic planning process that was really important, not only for the council, but for the community. And it's that sort of leadership that I will bring to the role of mayor. I will be working to get the community engaged in a way that will allow us to have a better understanding of the choices in front of us and how we got to where we are. And so I look forward to being elected, and in the new year, I will be scheduling a series of workshops on a variety of subjects that will give us, which will be a new council. There will be new council members, and it will be important that we have the opportunity to get a clear understanding of the challenges ahead and the objectives that we want to achieve. So I thank you all, and I would appreciate your vote. And ballots are out next week in your mailbox, and you need to cast your vote by November 8th. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Candidate Cremona.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you to the league, to fellow candidates, and to the audience for listening and giving us an opportunity to speak about issues. And we have discussed a lot of important issues. But one of the most important issues that is facing voters is how we grow our city. We became incorporated in 1986 for the very purpose of having control over how we grow. We voted in 2013 for Prop A. Again, this vote was imperative to how we grow our city and controlling zoning changes and height. I think that leadership at City Hall has a vast responsibility to residents and to maintaining the character of our city. It is the #1 issue that residents that I've spoken to over the last 6 months bring up as most important and near and dear to them. They feel that their culture is changing and quickly. I'm not opposed to change, but I think growth needs to be managed well, managed smart. In addition, if there is an opportunity on council for if a seat opens up on council, I can promise you that I will never, as one vote of 5, vote for an appointment. I will always vote to elect your officials. So local control, very important. If you vote for me, I will always champion Encinitas and local control and our city's culture and character. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidate Blobe.
Yes, thank you so much. First and foremost, we need unity. We are very divided right now. The division causes us to be weak. United, we can do anything. And I think the council needs to make the decisions for all of the people, not for some of the people. And the mayor has to be the one that leads that charge. And so that's why my main focus is hearing the voices of the residents and having their voice weigh heavy on my decision. That's why I want them to have a voice and be able to vote on big issues, and me take that vote to the council and make that be a heavy weight on our decision, because we have to do what the people want. We can't do what we want. We can't do what some of the people want. We need to do what all of the people want. And with my experience negotiating with state and local or state and federal governments, as well as executives from corporations, I have the ability to negotiate and find a compromise very easily once I get negotiating. So we have to come together. Unity is important. As a city, we have to come together to make these decisions. And so all I got to say, and I also want to make sure that every person in this city is respected and honored equally. And so all I have to say is respect everyone, trust few, and do wrong to no one. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's thank the Encinitas community for asking so many good questions. There were so many good questions that we were not able to hear all of them. Finally, I want to sincerely thank the candidates for having the courage and willingness to run for public office. They are making democracy work and deserve our thoughtful votes. Thank you very much and good evening.